We're here today to talk about the upcoming drilling. We did a quick interview yesterday with Tim, who's heading up to site today. Drill rig should be coming on site over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And this is a bit of an opportunity to talk about a funny old week in the markets. We'll get Tim on to talk about the background of a drilling program. And most excitingly, we were having a conversation a couple of days ago about what we're hoping to see in a bit more detail. And I thought there was some cool stuff coming out of that. So maybe worth letting you have a quick chat about geology for a second.
Always happy to.
Yes, our viewers will know that. So I thought we'd start a little bit with the market. It's been a funny old market. We're going to stay off the politics fairly well. It's hard to talk about copper at the moment without talking about Trump. We saw some tariffs come on. We saw some tariffs come off. We saw some weirdness in the market, especially when you consider trading patterns on many companies that probably won't be in production for several years to come. But what's your take on this, Matt? Not getting too political, of course.
So the market obviously reacted pretty turbulently when Trump decided he was going to tariff Mexico and Canada. And then once that looked like it wasn't going to happen, it's all sort of recovered a little bit. Yeah. Copper took a bit of a nosedive and then is back solidly above 9,000 today. And I think it's probably something we're going to have to get a bit more used to than we've been used to. Trump's going to Trump. He's going to do a lot of strange and unexpected things, and the market's going to react. But you kind of have to, especially at our level of development and being still quite a ways away from production, you've got to take the long-term view. And I don't think anything's really happened over the last few weeks that's changed the long-term view enormously.
If anything, it's the positivity in the general long-term copper outlook, to my mind. I often joke, it's quite easy to be right about mineral economics. It just depends on how long it takes you to be right. And to put that in more, proper mineral economics terms, everything comes down to elasticities of supply and demand. And you look at what's happened in lithium. Supply came on real quick and real fast and real hard. Why? Because the stuff's everywhere. There's lots of it about. So then it becomes a race to who's got the largest deposits, lowest cost production, and who can get there with the funding quickest. Copper's just fundamentally different. We're not seeing that production come through.
On the other side, though, you are seeing demand, certainly signals for demand looking like we're going to ramp up. It was, one of Trump's other unexpected announcements a few days before the tariffs was $500 billion for AI infrastructure in the United States. And that's all data centers, all of which need to be hooked up by copper. And we know the Chinese they said before Trump was even elected that if he was elected, they'd need to stimulate. That stimulus isn't going to be, concrete and roads to nowhere. It's going to be electrification, decarbonization, all of next generation energy production, that sort of thing. Again, copper intensive.
The Chinese have got much smarter and more logical about stimulus. I remember the big stimulus back in about 2011 where inflation was rampant in China. For background, I lived in China for many years. My first degrees were in Chinese studies. Friends would be saying, life's hard. Things were really challenging back then. We're in a very fundamentally different world. We're not seeing that, as you say, roads to nowhere, bridges to nowhere, ghost towns. It's going to be a race for AI, data centers. We've seen the DeepSeek news as well. And $500 billion worth of data centers, that's US dollars. That's a lot of copper.
Yeah.
So anyone saying Trump's bad for copper, I'm not convinced, but I'm also not convinced it's a whole Trump story there.
No, there's a lot going on, and I think it's going to come down to whether volatility, which I think we're just going to kind of have to get used to over the next 4 years, if you'll pardon the pun, whether volatility trumps fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. Volatility can't trump fundamentals in the long run. I have a suspicion it's going to be an interesting few months ahead.
That's probably going to turn out to be an understatement, I think.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we've got it on video.
Yeah, well, this will be one of those rare times we can look back and say, did we get it right? But, I think fundamentally it's not like nickel where you've got major suppliers come on and you can see where that supply is coming from and technological step changes facilitating that supply. It's not like lithium where there was always a wave of supply coming from the early days and it was just a question of how long it took to come on. The major copper deposits are not out there, not being found, and the ones that are currently in the top 20 producers are often depleting, things like Escondida. So we obviously have a positive view of copper. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here in this office doing this job. My life is very leveraged to that. But it is also a view that is very leveraged from a lot of study and thinking about the fundamentals, because it's not a question we want to get wrong, right?
That's absolutely right.
So talking of being the next, being part of that solution to world copper supply, obviously we're drilling.
Yep.
We're going to cut in Tim here in a second.
Yeah, we spoke to Tim the other day. He is on the road as we speak. In fact,
Yeah.
I think he's probably about 100 k's north of Port Augusta right now.
Fantastic.
So he's on his way up to site. And we spoke to him the other day, so we can hop him in now and let everyone hear about what the drilling's going to be like.
Here's Tim.
So as a break from Matt and I talking about politics in the copper market, we thought we'd get some insight into how an actual drill program runs from our operations manager, Tim Miller. Welcome, Tim. How are you going?
Pretty good, Chris. How are you, Matt?
Good. It's been a long few weeks for you and Matt getting drill preparations ready and getting everything moving. Where are we at?
Well, there's nothing like organising a drill program just before Christmas and then having Christmas in the middle and then recovering from Christmas and then getting back into it all again. But we are well and truly at the pointy end. We are literally days from starting. I'm heading up to site in just a couple of days now to get things well and truly underway. But the process has been smooth. There's a lot to go into it, but for the most part, everything has been expected.
Yeah. Tell us a bit more about what you need to do to get a drill program going. Obviously, a lot of our viewers are very interested in the sort of behind the scenes stuff that we sometimes talk about. So what are the sort of things that you have to think about when you're getting these things moving?
Sure. So obviously a drill contractor, that's the main one, right? So it's the first one we think about. You don't have much of a drill rig. You don't have a drill program without a drill rig. So, pick there. So that's done. We're lucky that being in South Australia here, we've got plenty of great contractors we can choose from. And people that we can go with that know the ground and that we can work well with. So that was done, locked in before Christmas time. And then moving forward with that, there's some, I suppose, long-term goals or objectives we need to do by ticking off the government mandates and approvals, making sure we've got all those in place, as well as dealing with the landholder, making sure they're aware of what's going on, those long-term planning.
Yeah, and we lead a pretty blessed life at Elizabeth Creek, don't we? We've got phenomenal landholder. The TOs are absolutely amazing to work with. As you say, drilling contractor that we've worked with before and know the ground makes life a little bit easier.
I've referred to Elizabeth Creek as our backyard a number of times, and it really is. And because of that, we have an ongoing pepper with the ground. So a lot of the behind-the-scenes preparation for that environmental impacts is already done. We've already done the assessments. The department know exactly what we're going to be doing. So it's just a matter of going ahead, giving them a program notification saying, this is what we plan to do this time around. There's nothing out of the ordinary. And they look over it and give us the thumbs up, and which they have done just this week, and away we go.
Yeah, phenomenal. So we've announced last week that drill rig will be on site in early Feb. That really means start of the second week, I think we put. So once the drill rig turns up, what do you got to do? What does a program look like?
So first off for me, the last few weeks I've been dealing with some contractors, earthworks contractors, getting the drill pads organised, making sure we've got water on site, campsite all sorted, those sorts of things. Once the drill rig arrives, for me, it's running through inductions, making sure it runs up to speed with safety aspects, make sure they know the lay of the land, make sure they know what we expect. And it's much of getting to know them and their process and their program processes to make sure I'm across it as well. So we'll get them set up out on the pad. They'll have a day or so of getting organised, unpacking, but we should have them out on the drill pad starting to dig a hole very shortly thereafter.
Phenomenal. And what happens back here? Obviously, you've got the daily plots coming through and you've got progress reports that gets fed through. Those of you who've seen Katrina on the podcast, this is where she rules the Excel spreadsheet with an iron fist and makes sure that every meter's tracked and then we know exactly what's happening. Any other bits that you keep an eye on? Obviously, safety, number one priority, making sure this happens on time and on budget. Number two, finding copper would be a very, very nice outcome.
Yeah. So luckily, from an operations point of view, for me, as long as everyone on site is safe, everyone's doing what they need to be doing, everyone feels comfortable doing what they need to be doing. That's a main objective for me. From there, I'm looking at, do we have enough water on site? Do we have enough fuel on site? Do the drillers and the geos and everyone there have everything they need to do to make sure this program runs smoothly? The tricky part, the rocks, that's why Matt's here, and you can do that bit. I'll step away, but no, I do everything I can in my power to make sure Matt and the geos can look at what's coming out of the ground, make some calls, and as you said, the daily plods. Are we heading in the right direction? Are we on target? And then we keep going.
Yeah, fantastic. Got any questions, Matt?
None that I haven't already asked him many times over the past couple of weeks. They're always a bit stressful getting these things kicked off. We've got our first rig out there on the weekend of the 8th and 9th. That's going to be doing our RC pre-collars. And then the Diamond Tails will kick off a few days after that. And then it's, comes down to the rocks.
Rocks and geology and Mother Nature and all of those good things. The XRF gone phenomenal. We're all very excited. And I'll hopefully see you guys on site to look at some nice core in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.